All right, my friends, welcome back to another episode of the Build Show podcast. That's right, my weekly time to get together with you guys and go deep. I've got a special guest all the way from Utah, our friend Stephanie Dailey. You guys have heard me podcast with Stephanie. I'm sure you've seen her on the Build Show, but Stephanie has a brand new house in the mountains under construction that's actually pretty far underway that she's shooting a whole series of videos on called altitude adjustment. And I want to talk to Stephanie about a few things that I think might be relevant to you and I. First off, I did a project not too long ago that was an hour and 15 minutes drive from my office, and we encountered a bunch of difficulties that I didn't expect. And so I want to really dig into Stephanie thinking about remote work. How do you figure out whether a project works for you or not when it's not in your backyard, so to speak? And then also we're going to talk about building in elevation. I honestly have no idea what it's like building in the mountains, what it's like building in winter time, and all these other conditions that Stephanie deals with on a pretty regular basis. So we're going to be jumping into altitude adjustment. With that being said, from the Reisinger Build Studios in Austin, Texas, let's get going. Before we jump into Stephanie, I want to say a big thanks to our sponsor, Altitude Adjustment. That's right, this episode is sponsored by the series that Stephanie's doing called Altitude Adjustment. Hopefully it's been published by about the time that you listen to this. So if you go over to thebuildshow.com, hit that hamburger menu, and if you went to Build Experts, you'd find Stephanie, but if you go to Build Original Series, hit that menu, you scroll down to Altitude Adjustment. That's where you actually be able to watch this series. And by the way, currently on our website, you can stream straight from your phone over to your set-top TV, your Samsung, your Sony, whatever it is. You can stream right from your phone and actually watch this on the big screen. Everything we shoot's in at least high def, so it's really nice to watch that on the big screen. With that being said, let's jump in with Stephanie Dailey. Stephanie, thank you for taking the time to podcast with me today.
Of course.
Good seeing you again. So, Stephanie, I really wanted to spend a little bit of time thinking about a project that's not in your backyard. And I'm thinking that we might be able to give some lessons to other builders out there when they're doing remote work. So first off, tell us, like, how remote is this? What distance from your home office or maybe even your personal home it is for this job in the mountains?
Yeah, so summertime obviously is easier than winter.
Yep.
Winter puts in a whole nother load of complications. But summertime, when I leave real early in the morning, I can get up there in about 45 or 50 minutes. But anytime we're talking about going up in traffic, rush hour traffic, or in the winter, we are going up Harley's Canyon, which is kind of the main pathway up to Park City. So we're fighting, big snowstorms. We're fighting
Wow.
a lot of tourist traffic in the winter ski season. So I would imagine, on a good day, 45 to 50 minutes. But once we start hitting winter this year, it could take an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours, depending on
Oh
the
my
time that
gosh.
we're going up. But I like to leave my house really early. I tend to be at the job site before 7 a.m. and then usually leave after 5 or before 5, depending on the day, just to try and beat that traffic.
That makes a long day, my friend. Holy cow.
It
Dang.
definitely can.
And when we
Yeah.
say altitude, what is the Salt Lake's at what, a mile? Are you roughly Denver mile high kind of
Yeah.
altitude at Salt Lake
Yeah.
City where your office is?
I don't know the exact elevation, but where we're at with this house in Park City, we're about 8,000 feet. So it's a pretty significant difference. As far as locals like myself, it's not a big challenge with the altitude. But the homeowners are definitely facing a little bit of an altitude challenge because their primary residence is in Florida.
That's hilarious. So give us the name, help us understand the name behind altitude adjustment.
Yeah, it's actually funny. The homeowner came up with it. So
Did he really? That's
yeah,
awesome.
when we started this build, we like to name every house that we have. I think it gives the homeowner some anonymity, and we can post about the project without kind of revealing location or homeowner
Yeah,
details.
like the Wayne Manor that you and I visited a bunch, which
Yep,
I think of
exactly.
as Batman's Wayne Manor is what I always think
Exactly.
of, which may or may not be the case. But
Yep,
okay, so
absolutely.
so this home is being named by your company internally,
Yep.
slash for the video series and social media as altitude adjustment. And where in the how did the homeowner come up with that?
Yeah, so I just kind of gave them the opportunity and said, "Hey, we want to come up with a name. We name our houses. Like, do you want to think about it? Is this something you want to come up with, or do you want me to come up with it?" And he's like, "No, this would be really fun." So, him and his wife just kind of took a couple days and got right back to me and said, "We want to call it altitude adjustment for two reasons. One, obviously, it is a huge altitude adjustment for them." And two, he thought it was just kind of a funny play off of attitude adjustment, and it's a perfect fit for these two. They're a really fun and energetic couple. So
That's awesome. And actually, I want to pause on this for a second because I'll be honest, my company a lot of times has named projects by the homeowner last name, which is a problem. You don't want to say, the Reisinger residence on social media, right? If it's someone's house. We've also named it by street names, which is also just as bad, frankly, because you lose the anonymity if it's, Elm Spring Road or whatever job.
yeah.
But the other issue we found is I have a lot of repeat clients now that we've been in business 20 years. And if you call it the Reisinger project, but then they build another house with you 2 years later, it's really darn easy for your accountant, a project manager, somebody to bill something wrong. And you're like, oh no, I closed that job 2 years ago in the accounting department. Like, why are you invoicing me for this? Oh, what are you talking about? Our guys did the work a month ago. Oh, I understand. You did XYZ differently. I'm curious, like, do you in your accounting software, in your job site codes, are you always calling it altitude adjustment?
Yeah, right from the get-go. So we try and name them really before I even send them out to start getting bids. And that gives me the opportunity to change the name on the plans, to change really kind of any communication that we're having about the project to that name. And really, we found as we're building these more kind of luxury estate style homes, the homeowners tend to be people who are pretty private or who are in positions of, big CEOs of companies, or just people who really want to keep that privacy. They want to protect that privacy. So we've tried to like name them and keep them as that name right from the beginning, if possible. And then the real kicker for us was we recently built my dad his own home a few years back. And we had a new website. We were posting all the photos and, we were doing exactly what we've always done, the daily residence. And him experiencing that firsthand, he kind of realized like, hey, that I don't really love that. I don't
Hmm,
love
interesting.
my name's on the website. People can see what the house looks like. And so we really started just naming them as project names a few years back, and we've just stuck with it. So we try to keep it that way from start to finish and just take the homeowner's name out of it entirely.
That's really smart. I like that. I've kind of noticed other people doing that now on social media. I have a builder friend of mine in Brenham, Jesse, with the Homestead Builders, and
Yeah.
he starts all his Instagram videos. Hey, we're at the, such and such homestead project,
Mhm.
which doesn't seem like someone's last name. I forget what the name of the one is I watched yesterday, but he's doing that in all his videos, and I think that's a good best practice for us as builders to
Yeah.
uh,
I mean,
to adopt.
yeah, our clients' privacy is really one of the top priorities. I mean, we're in a unique situation as builders where we are really diving in headfirst into their finances. We know a lot
Hmm.
about these people in and out, and usually these people are fairly private people. And whether it's a $500,000 house or a $5 million house, you know a lot of sensitive information about these people. So it's just a good idea to, you know, your job is to protect them and to keep them happy and comfortable throughout this process. And that's just a little way that we can make a difference.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go back to that distance of being so far away from the office. I'm curious, like, have all of your subs been like, oh yeah, no problem at all? Or have you gotten either pushback like, oh yeah, no problem, but we're gonna charge you X, Y, and Z, whether it's a fuel charge, whether it's a 10% addition on the job or a daily, or frankly, just some subs are like, I have enough work in Salt Lake. I'm not interested in driving to the top of the mountains at the ski resort.
Yeah, I think we've had a little bit of all of it. We're in a unique market. It's a little bit of a bubble. We're kind of a tech hub. home building is exploding. It's a very, very busy market, which we are very
Mhm.
thankful for. But yeah, there's plenty of work for these people down in the valley. There's no real need for them to drive this far away. I think the thing that's worked for us the best is we really don't shop our trades a lot and we don't switch our trades a lot. We kind of have a core group of people that we've worked with for a really long time.
That's
So there's
cool.
a lot of loyalty there, you know?
Yeah, so
And
it's just, oh, this is our job that's in the mountains. Okay, it's our, it's our project. Great.
yeah, yeah, the most of the people that's kind of been the response is it's just another Stephen Dailey construction job. It's what, just a different location. I think the thing that has actually driven people to add some type of a cost to their bill has honestly been the community, not necessarily the location.
Hmm.
So in Park City, we have, well, quite frankly, across all of Utah, we have a lot of these like luxury gated communities that make it really, really hard to build in.
Hmm.
You have to sign waivers before you can come in the community. They have to do a
Wow.
background check. They have to get your insurance information. They have police that patrol the communities to check for speeding. And I mean, it's not stuff out of the ordinary, other than it just adds a lot of extra work, I guess, to
Hmm.
things. Just making sure you're parking on the right side of the street and not tracking dirt in the road, all of the things we normally do. It's just on a really heightened level.
Yeah.
So, in addition to that, these communities don't allow you to enter the main gate, which is quite frankly the most convenient gate.
Hmm.
So they typically
Construction entrance.
Yeah, they typically have one or two construction entrances, which are usually on the back side of the community, which we're talking about thousands of acres. And, the time to go from my office to the back construction gate of this community would probably add another 30 minutes.
Are you serious? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah, it's quite a bit. This community has actually been really great. Right before we did our excavation, they opened up a new construction gate, which is fairly convenient. But yeah, these communities can get a little challenging, and that's kind of the only reason we're seeing a little bit of an increased cost from people, but it hasn't yet been significant. And I think a lot of that is because of those relationships and really
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
these people that, they know they can count on you for work. You can count on them for their expertise and building that valuable relationship. I think if we were more known for bouncing between trades, the loyalty just isn't there. And so you're
Yeah.
likely to have more of those issues.
I have a funny story for you. I did a project that was about an hour and 15, hour and 20 or so from my office. I completed a couple years ago. And when we started the project manager at the time said, I don't have a wife and kids. I think I want to, see if I could find a house in town to rent. Would you guys, help me with that? And we kind of talked to the client about it. And, should we rent a 4 or 5 bedroom house that trades could come out, work late in the summer when it stays late. And long story short, the client didn't love the idea of paying for that, obviously. And we'd already had like a construction office in the budget. And to be honest, I can't remember what we budgeted, but let's call it $1,000 a month for a construction office rental. Well, we're like, I wonder if we put that towards a like a fifth wheel camper, where that would get us. So long story short, we bought a used, I don't know if it was 10 years old, but it was not new, RV, and pulled it on the site and put utilities to it. Hooked it up to the septic and the water line and power, and kind of used it as a construction office. But the idea was, this project manager was going to sleep in it occasionally and spend 2 or 3 nights a week out there. Well, you know exactly what's going to happen here in this story, right? We spent like 20 grand on the thing. And I think maybe one night got spent there out of this 2 year project. Maybe it was even
Yeah.
longer. Maybe it was like a 28-month project, something like that. Rats got in it. and it was worth a shell of the price we paid for it after sitting in a field basically for 2+ years. I
Yeah.
can only think of one or two meetings I had in there because it was 105 and we wanted to get in the AC. So in the end, it was really dumb and not worthwhile. But as a side note, I did have a couple trades that were really specific with me, like, hey, I've ordered you forever. This is a massive pain going out to this job, and we're going to build in getting our VRBO for 2 weeks or 3 weeks for our install time. Like, I think my HVAC guy kind of negotiated that, so to speak, and said,
Yep.
"Hey, I'm gonna build this in, so know that this isn't gonna make what you expect my bid to be." And I appreciated that he told us that. We talked about it with a client, and it ended up working out pretty well. They did get that kind of offsite rental. So I think there's some pitfalls, but when at the very end of the day, I know this won't be your experience, but at the very end of the day, our company said, look, we're not going to do those jobs. You know, we were wowed by the cool architect and the cool architecture, and this is going to be the word portfolio builder I've thrown around on the podcast before. We're just not going to get wowed anymore. And so
Yeah.
we kind of keep a running diary, so to speak, of our projects, and we do an after action report or a post-mortem, as we call it around here, on our jobs to say, what went well on that project and what didn't go well that we thought might, and what do we need to learn? And I'm being long-winded, but my company has said, look, we're going to really tighten our radius on where we say we'll build, and we're not going to go down the pathway if you don't meet some of these certain criteria.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Have you done other projects up in this area though, or at that distance in
Yeah,
the past?
we have quite a few. And the one thing that's always made it make sense for me is multiple. So having multiple projects in that area at the
Right.
same time makes it kind of calculate a little bit better,
For
oddly
sure.
enough, for
For
me.
sure.
And that's the case for this project. We have a
Oh,
handful
that's
of
awesome.
projects that are all starting kind of within a few months of each other that are all in that
Fabulous.
same area. So it it makes it a lot of an easier decision for us, but also, when you meet a really good client and everything just kind of works out, the client is great to work with, the budgets are right, their understanding of what they want to build versus what it costs and the location they're wanting to build in, you can kind of get the feeling that this is going to be a smooth process. This is going to be a smooth project. It makes sense to do it. It obviously doesn't make sense to do those projects that you feel like it's going to be a challenge from the beginning to the end.
Yep.
But everything just kind of played out perfect with this one. And I'm really happy we're doing it because it's turning out to be a really exciting project.
That's fabulous. It kind of reminds me a little bit in some respects, as you were talking about that, of what Jake Bruton did with his Kansas City office. He's from Columbia, Missouri, which is a medium small town. He was getting a bunch of calls from Kansas City, which is 2 or maybe 2.5 hours away. Like, hey, we'd really like you to build here. He ended up hiring a project manager there and then hiring basically a business partner, a high level person that's now he runs two offices. He's got a Columbia, Missouri, and he's got Kansas City. And so now he's got two big metros to pull work from, which is really smart. I could see you guys someday having another division of your company, maybe in that Park City general area.
Yeah, Utah's just growing so fast. And if you really look at where the massive amounts of housing is built, it's really concentrated into the valley, kind of from Salt Lake all the way down through Utah County, just in the center of these two giant mountain ranges. And obviously, at some point, we're going to run out of land. We do have a lot of federal land in Utah. We have a lot
Hmm.
of national park land.
Hmm.
So, kind of going from that center valley and the benches of the mountains, your next choice for undeveloped land is up and over the mountain.
Right.
So there's just a lot of movement happening over there. That's where a lot of our big luxury communities are popping up. These people who want second homes close to the ski resorts. It's just becoming more and more popular. And it feels like a lot of the more custom builders in our market are kind of playing in both fields. It makes sense. It's just you kind of go where the business is. So
Yeah.
who knows?
As a side note, I grew up East Coast and moved to Texas 20 some years ago. And growing up East Coast, I never thought Utah as being a pretty place, right? I was a Northeastern guy and I always thought Northeast was really pretty. And we went to Zion National Park, which is in Utah. I forget, maybe 4 or 5 years ago with my one of my first RV trips. And I remember telling my wife, this has got to be the most beautiful park in America. Like I did the bike tour. I did the bike tour where they drop you off at the highest part and you
Yep.
mountain bike downhill the entire through the entire park. And I
Yep.
think I did it during COVID when there wasn't 25 tourist buses in there. It was like kind of
Oh,
empty. That was one of the greatest national park experiences. And I was like, oh my God, I had no idea how beautiful Utah was. There's some
yeah.
gorgeous scenery in Utah. So it's no wonder that people are flocking to Utah.
Yeah, I think the scenery is a huge part of it. Also, just our overall, we have a lot of tech companies moving. We have a lot of big companies that are coming to Utah. Really good thanks to kind of our government that's working on taxes, all these different types of kickbacks or incentives to bring these big companies in, which also bring in thousands of employees and their families, and they need housing. And so it's definitely growing. It's a beautiful place, and a lot of people are coming to Utah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Stephanie, I'm going to put you on the spot here because I didn't prep you for this. But if our listeners don't know, Stephanie is the co-founder, I think I'm saying that right, of Jobsite Codes, which is a really interesting piece of software designed by a builder for builders. And you guys have had some pretty big announcements recently on some changes. I hope you don't mind me putting you on the spot on this.
Not at
Uh,
all.
First off, if people don't know what job site codes is, what's the kind of elevator pitch? What do you tell people about job site codes?
Yeah, so it's really a program that helps you organize your job sites and be more efficient with your trades, your homeowners, and your team. I personally have tried a lot of softwares, a lot of construction softwares throughout the years. I always just ran into a little bit of tension, whether it be with the trades or with our team onboarding to a software. Everything felt too complicated for our little company, or it felt like the trades, it was just added too much stress or too much work for them, which frustrated them. And obviously, my job is to make their job easier, not to make it more
Hmm.
difficult.
Yeah.
But with custom construction, things can change every day. They can change every hour. Clients are constantly making different decisions, and keeping that information up to date on the job site has proven to be really challenging with our traditional paper-based methods. So I really just wanted to find a way that we could make sure we had the latest and greatest information on the job site at all times. And that's where job site codes came from. So we really developed this software in about 2023, 2022, 2023.
Pretty
Uh,
fresh.
yeah, it's really new, and we developed it with a team of 200 builders, designers, and tradespeople who said, "Hey, I'm interested in this." And so we just asked them a bunch of questions. How would you want it to work? How would you want to use it? Do you want logins? Do you not want logins? Do you want an app? And we spent the first year just building and developing what it is today. So it did originally start out as just kind of a digital spec book, you could say, that really custom created individual QR codes for every area of the home. And then you could hang QR codes up and people could scan it and get the information. And it's really developed over time because it turned out to be something a lot of people wanted. So now we're doing really kind of like one-on-one feedback from our users to say, what else do you want it to do? So today it now stores photos and videos organized by area. It's basically like your Google Drive or your Dropbox, but they're all organized by area. They could be organized by trade. You can organize it really however you want, but it's made it to be you're keeping all of your information in a very organized fashion so people can find it really easy. And we did just launch a punch list feature, which has turned
Ooh.
out to be amazing. Like I put together a huge punch list just the other day and have not showed it to any of my trades, have not explained to them how to use it, and sent over the link and purely just explained how the electrician could get to his items only. And within a few hours, he was texting me asking how he could use it, how he could upload his own punch list items. And he'd gone through and done a bunch of them and checked them off. And it's really cool the way we've developed it because it gives you the opportunity to write or voice to text. It has some AI features in it. So you
Wow.
can like voice to text your, hashtag electrician, move this outlet 2 inches to the right at the master bedroom. And so it'll automatically filter it by trade and area. And you can upload an image so that they know like which outlet you're talking about and it's been great. We've gotten a lot of really good feedback, but we're still a small company, so we're trying to grow, but it's really fun to see so many other builders and designers using it and finding it helpful for their job sites too. It's a real passion project of ours and we're really happy about it.
That's really cool. It's jobsite.codes is the website, right?
Jobsitecodes.com.
Jobsitecodes.com. Sorry.
Either one will send
Jobsitecodes.
you there. They
Okay,
route it
got
out.
it. Jobsitecodes.com. Awesome.
Yeah.
Stephanie, last question for you. I suspect you may have already made your travel plans for Build Show Live in November, or pardon me, in October rather, not November. Last year was in November. This year is in October. Do you know what you're presenting on in October? I actually can't remember, and I've seen the big master
Yeah.
list.
I can't remember the exact names of all of them, but I think I have 5 different presentations. Some of them are very business oriented. Others are a little more along the lines of like what's hot this year in
Ooh, I like
construction.
it.
So it's kind of a cool one. And then really we just want to talk about these projects and these different build series that we have launching right now and talk
Yep.
more about, the unique features inside of altitude adjustment and some of the more challenging things that we've ran into in the build and some of the hurdles we had to jump over. I mean, we're pretty early in the build still in comparison to what our total time will take. And we've had some decent sized challenges. I find it interesting because I think we all kind of get in the habit of posting our wins and the cool stuff that we're doing on social media. We don't often talk about the challenges.
No, we
And
don't.
every builder faces them. And
That's
I
for
think
sure.
if we're not talking about it, then everybody who is facing those challenges kind of feels alone or
Yeah.
like they're doing something wrong.
Yep.
So I'm trying to do a much better job about that. So we'll have some different sessions that'll talk about some of the things that went wrong on my job site and how we fixed them.
That's awesome. I love that. Uh, I tend to be very open about my personal mistakes. Like I made a podcast 2, 3 weeks ago that was like I think it was titled A Terrible Anniversary. I was talking about how I was like nearly bankrupt
Uh-huh.
10 or 15 years ago. On a side note though, I just finished wrapping my series, the Reisinger build. And as I got into the end of the video, I wanted to tell people like, here's some things I would do differently. And I hesitated to do it because I knew that my homeowners who had purchased the house not long ago were watching every series with every video with bated breath. And I thought, do I really want to tell them that I would have probably gone to a single car garage with a big door rather than two doors with a section that you could hit your mirror on?
Yeah.
And I have to admit, like I kind of wish I would have said it so that the general audience would hear. I think it is better, but I really didn't do it because I didn't want to hurt my clients' feelings or put it into their head. Oh yeah, I really wish like I never saw that before, but now that you said it, I can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And there was something in the tile too that we changed that is hard to explain, but like I I would have done it differently. And I thought about pointing it out, and then I thought they're going to see that every single day and think, "Oh yeah, that really was a mistake. Like I wish that would have been differently." And if I don't tell them, they'll never see it. They'll never once think about it. No one will ever point it out. I'm only going to see it because I'm a nerd. So
Yep.
there's about 3 or 4 things that I hesitated to say. So I appreciate that you're willing to share those mistakes or issues or whatever. But also, I know that your client who I've talked to before, is going to be watching. and probably not listen to our podcast so we can talk about him. He seems like a fabulous guy.
Yeah.
So there is that fine line of us always being 100% honest, but yet also protecting the privacy, feelings, whatever for key people.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like you want to protect their vision of the home and you don't want to taint it with something that you're saying like, oh, I did this wrong.
Hmm.
But, I try and keep a very transparent line of communication with my clients. I just feel like from the start to the finish, if I'm extremely transparent about the finances, about conversations, about, speed bumps or issues, it just makes that process a lot more comfortable for them and me.
Right.
And it also just kind of helps loosen everybody up. I mean, we're all human. We've all made mistakes, but
Hmm.
sometimes it's a personal mistake and someone's just done something stupid on the job for the day. And other times
Right.
it could be a product mistake that really isn't the fault of any of us, but maybe we tried a new product and didn't work out the way we thought it would.
Yeah, totally.
But I think the beauty of that is like, you know, we we've recently had some issues like this and fixing it, how you fix it and getting it right in the end for the homeowner, that's all that really matters to them. You
Yeah.
know, they understand there's been an issue, but I just think like having those conversations and being straightforward about it, there's probably a lot of people out there that have done something similar on their job sites and just feel like, oh, I'm a terrible builder. And I just think it's good. I think it's good for everyone to know that, like, even the Matts of the world have had things where they've made mistakes, and
Totally.
it's not
100%.
not the end of your business. It's not the end of the world, but how you fix it is what's most important. And
That's right.
these
Totally.
clients are great. They are big build show fans. It makes it even more fun to build for them in that
That's
case.
fun.
Yeah, one of the things I've found with this particular client is he's watched so many of the build show videos. He really understands the value, the cost, and the impact of a lot of
Hmm.
the products and features that we're
That's
using.
awesome. That's very
And
cool.
yeah, it makes it so great because I feel like a lot of times people maybe see a social media video about, an altitude control technology system, for example. And they're like, oh, wow, that looks really cool. I have to have it in my house. But they may not understand the cost associated with that system. And so, it's something they're demanding, it's something they want in their build. But then when you get to the point of, telling them the cost on it, they're like, whoa, this is,
Oh, I didn't know
yeah,
that.
it gets a little scary, but it's been really great with these clients because they watch, they educate themselves. He really understands a lot of the products we're using. He understands the value or the cost associated with those. And this is his forever house. This is a house that the two of them really want to stay in for the rest of their lives. And
That's awesome.
so we're doing some really cool stuff. We obviously are using all of our tried and true BFS, Huber. We've got a really fantastic Pella window package. And
Cool.
we've got some fun stuff like the altitude control system to try and keep
That's awesome.
the pressure in the house down so they don't get the sickness from altitude adjusting. Hence,
That's pretty awesome.
but it's also just a cool house, it's different. It's not anything like anything else I've ever built before. The clients have weird tastes, really funky style.
That's
Um,
cool.
you're going to see some features, some finishes, some products in this house that are just, I would have never in a million years put these items together. And it's just mind blowing how cool it is and how great it's going to turn out.
That's fun. That's fun. I got one
Yeah.
last question for you that I thought of as you were talking about your client.
Yeah.
You seem like you have a pretty tight relationship with most of your clients. That's the impression I get. How often do you talk to, like, let's go back a client just because you're at the tail end of the Wayne Manor project. How often do you have communication with those clients?
Daily.
Is that right? Are they
Um,
texting you? Are they emailing you? Do you have some other
yeah,
proprietary, format that you communicate with?
it depends on the client.
Mm,
So, um, for Wayne Manor, that client is very, very busy. He is in meetings all the time. and all the time, meeting day and night. He does business overseas. So he's just
Wow.
a very busy person. He tends to communicate mostly through text and prefers that communication. However, he will call me and reach out. But, that particular client prefers to communicate through text. Altitude adjustment is a little bit of the same. He is quite often on a different time zone than I
Oh,
am.
wow. Dang.
So they primarily live in Florida. He's currently working in California, and then I'm in Utah. So depending on where he's at any given time, we usually do communicate through text too. But I try and have like a personal phone call with them at least once a week, just to kind of say, like, here's what's going on right now. Here's what we've got done this week. Here's what's coming up. And that is more if they're out of town clients. If they live in Utah, I usually meet them at the house at least once a week and just kind of walk through with them and
That's what we do
just
too.
yeah, give them a heads up, kind of say what's going on. And oftentimes from framing all the way through drywall, we have a regularly scheduled meeting where we meet those clients once a week just to walk through any changes or, you know, that's kind of the time of the build where you see people making the most adjustments once they start to see like where light switches are nailed up or where outlets have been placed or, you've been on my job sites before. We like to spray paint and mark out all the cabinetry
Hmm.
and,
Yep.
um,
Pretty
you know,
awesome.
different heights of things, plumbing fixtures and stuff. So that's probably the most critical in our process to meet one-on-one on site if possible. But often with my out of town clients, I'll FaceTime them from the job
Hmm.
site and just kind of give them a bit of a heads up or
That's pretty cool.
try to
Do,
communicate.
do you ever try and capture that text communication in some way that you could look back on it? And of
Yeah.
course, I'm thinking both extremes, either like, oh my gosh, I get sued someday and I need to be able to show, oh, I told you all about that and you told me to do it anyways. Or now, what did they tell me? Did they tell me they wanted the red one or the blue one on the knobs for their, Sub-Zero, whatever?
Yeah.
Is that something that you ever worry about or have done anything with?
I try and keep my text messages. Obviously, I have them on my MacBook as well, and I try and download them at the end of every project just to
Hmm.
have. But I do go back all of the time because a lot of my communication with these clients is through text. So it's not uncommon for them to give me an answer to a question through text. And then maybe I get busy doing something else and forget to pass that info along. So I go back all of the time through my messages to look for things, to look for photos, early on in the build. We'll share photos back and forth of like inspiration things or um, some products they're looking into kind of a thing. So I do try and keep them. That is a good benefit to communicating through email and text is you kind of have a
Hmm.
record of that.
Yeah.
And for me, it's always been just so that I can make sure I'm keeping myself on track and remembering selections and that kind of thing. Um, but I don't know. I think it's good to have the record of the communication, regardless. But a phone call, a personal phone call once a week is always good. It's good to
Yeah.
have that real communication and or if you can do it together in person on site. But even with that, when I do that, you'll see me follow it up with an email just saying, hey, thanks for coming by the house today. Here's just a recap of, some of the things we chatted about for two reasons. One, just to remind them, and two, so I can make sure that I'm keeping track because it's we've never had an issue, knock on wood, that we've gone to court or have ever had any issues with clients, but it does happen all of the time that I forget something. So
Yeah, for sure.
that's maybe my biggest flaw is I'm just always 24/7 running and gunning and doing everything and anything. So
You don't shut
I
down
can
too
get
easily, do
forgetful.
you?
I
You don't
don't.
not you don't
No,
power down very often from what I've seen, that's for
not
sure.
often. Not often. But if I do forget something, it's usually only for a few hours. And then It usually wakes me up at 2 o'clock in the morning, reminding me. So
Oh my
I'll remember it
gosh.
at some point.
That's hilarious. Well, if you're up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you should go over to thebuildshow.com and watch the altitude adjustment series. By the time we publish this, it should have episode one up, and Stephanie's going to continue to build this house and shoot these episodes. So this is a series that you guys definitely want to be following along. And if you don't know Stephanie Dailey, you can go watch all her videos over on thebuildshow.com. She's under the experts tab. Or you can also follow along with her on the Instagrams as well at Stephanie Builds It. It's STHEPHANIE. Did I say that right?
STEP, yep.
Builds.
STEPHANIE.
I say that right? Hopefully I did. Buildsit.com. I see it in my
Yeah.
mind. I might not have said it
Regular
correctly.
Stephanie spelling.
Regular Stephanie spelling. There you go. Stephanie, really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to come podcast with me today. Always great to catch up with you, my friend. You're doing great work out there. You've been a fabulous addition to the Build Show, and you guys build amazing houses in Utah. I need to schedule another time to come out and visit with you. That's for sure.
Anytime. You're welcome out anytime. And this project is moving along, and it's just mind blowing. You guys have to watch these videos that I can't even explain to you the scale, the size, the view, the complexity. Like it's a really incredible project that I am so excited that we're documenting because it's a one of a kind.
I can't wait. Although I might need to wait till the altitude adjustment room is ready though, because I get altitude sickness when I go from zero when I'm at like 2 above or 10 above sea level here in Austin to 8,000. So I'll need to take my pills that my doctor wife gives me that helps me acclimate without a problem.
Yeah, we'll just have to get you in that altitude control technology room.
Exactly.
Get multiple of them, so it'll help you make it through the really tough air.
Thank you for your time, Stephanie. Really appreciate it. Guys, if you're not currently a subscriber, hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening or watching this podcast. We do new podcasts every single Friday. Stephanie's shooting videos almost every single week on her job site and publishing to thebuildshow.com. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on The Build Show Podcast.